Movies, television, books, music, games, comics. Pop culture is one of the things that makes life worth living, and pop culture can be a window into your soul. Welcome to Blew My Mind, where shrink tankers share personal, mind-blowing pop culture experiences. I'm your host, Dr. Craig Pohlman. I'm a neurodevelopmental psychologist, author, Rolling Stones fan, Trekkie, and Yoda disciple. My co-host today is Dr. Kristin Daley. Kristin is an author and therapist. Her doctorate is in health psychology, and she helps clients achieve emotional, physical, and social health. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well.
Now, I asked you in an earlier episode what instrument you wish you could play, and I believe you said the bass?
Yes,
is that right?
Absolutely.
Mine as well. How good of a singer are you?
You know, I actually did show chorus in early high school.
What is that? What is
where you get to dress up and sing, and a tiny bit of dance. And I always fancied myself to be a good singer, but according to my current audience, which are the people in my car,
right.
I'm pretty bad. So,
okay.
Yeah. Apparently, it was all in my head.
I'm not much of a singer myself. My wife is. But how likely would you be to just burst into song Broadway music style?
Very likely.
Where might that happen, if it would?
Well, like I said, it happens a lot in the car.
Mm-hmm.
I really love singing at the top of my lungs in the car.
I tell you where this might happen to me if my life were a Broadway musical. It would be on the sidelines of a youth soccer or basketball game, where I would just sort of like rant musically about what I'm seeing, or I'd celebrate something that one of my sons have done. I think that would be a great bit in a Broadway musical about my life.
Yes. I think I might do it ending a run. I always feel like that feels a little bit like dancing.
Awesome.
It would never occur to me to do it in the shower, which I think is when everybody else does.
Right.
But that doesn't occur to me.
So joining us today is Elise Howell. How are you?
I'm great.
Elise is a new therapist here at Southeast Psych, but previously she was our graduate intern, so she's a bit of a veteran. She specializes in anxiety, trauma, and transition in the lives of women and teens. She is a Harry Potter fan, and she really likes Broadway musicals.
Oh, do I?
And that just happens to be our topic today. Isn't that amazing? What a coincidence.
Yes, I'm so excited to be here.
So we've discussed several media on Blew My Mind, but this is the first episode devoted to the musical. Each of us is going to share a Broadway musical experience that blew our minds. And by the way, it doesn't necessarily have to have taken place on Broadway, but you know what I'm talking about. So, Kristin, please kick things off.
Okay, so my all-time favorite musical is, of course, a very controversial one. I feel like my taste always goes to the things that are on the edge of what's acceptable.
Sure.
And it's Hedwig and the Angry Inch. And so Hedwig and the Angry Inch is a musical about a man who was born in Germany and then identifies as female. He actually develops a relationship with a soldier. And as part of the goal to move to the U.S. to get out of, he was living in Berlin and, lots of oppression. He goes through a sex change operation. And unfortunately, the operation is not 100% successful because an angry inch is left behind.
There you have it.
Yes.
Hence the title.
And so, unfortunately for now her, Hedwig, also the name Hedwig is his mother's name, and he had what I consider to be a typical German mother who was very hard on him and not very warm, and actually explained to him that babies come from aliens, essentially. So he had a lot of confusion. And so then she is in Kansas, and her husband leaves her, and she finds herself all alone. So she does what most people would do and starts a rock band.
Yes, it's therapeutic.
It's very therapeutic.
Yes.
So what my favorite scene in this musical is a scene of her alone in her trailer park feeling very depressed, and the song is called Wig in a Box, and it is kind of the quintessential Hedwig and the Angry Inch song, where she is feeling really sad, really sorry for herself, really abandoned and alone, and she's looking around her trailer and she's thinking about all of the things that can make her happy, and she starts to build herself up. She starts to put on some makeup, grab the wig from her box, and move on with her life. And one of my favorite parts of this is it actually ends with them breaking the fourth wall. So she starts to engage the audience. And having seen this live, I actually saw it live in a small venue at Actors Theater. And it was really fun because the cast is moving into the audience and engaging everybody and singing the chorus. And it was a wonderful moment. And this clip is actually from the movie version of Hedwig and the Angry Inch. And so it follows Hedwig going through heartbreak, and in particular, there had been a relationship with a young boy, not illegally young, but younger. And at the end of Hedwig, it kind of culminates in this connection between the two. Hedwig had actually named the guy, given him a stage name, Bobby Gnosis, Gnosis, which stands for knowledge, or it's the Greek for knowledge. And Bobby's not the brightest or sharpest tool in the shed, and they are able to reconnect. And there is another song that I really love from Hedwig, and that is Wicked Little Town. And in Wicked Little Town, it's actually done twice. The first time it appears, Hedwig is singing it in a small venue, and that's when the character Bobby is introduced, and you see Bobby falling for Hedwig. And then it actually is done again at the end as part of their reconnection. And so it very, very special moment.
So you saw this Actors Theater.
Yes.
So what really blew your mind about the whole experience of taking this in?
Well, so the funny thing was, when I had seen it, it was my second time seeing a rock and roll based musical at Actors Theater, and I had always wanted to see Hedwig because I feel like I had always heard it was good. There were a couple of alternative artists who put out a covering of a lot of the songs from the musical, and I was really blown away by the acting and the story. It was one of those times where all of the songs made sense. Sometimes when I'm watching musicals, I can feel really embarrassed for the actors because the whole breaking into song thing makes no sense. And I never once felt embarrassed. I always felt entertained. And definitely when they engaged the audience, it was off the charts fun.
You know, when you take in a musical, you do have to sort of suspend that disbelief. You have to get into this whole universe where it's possible to just break into song when you're going down a grocery store aisle.
Yes, and people are going to dance and sing and jazz hands.
Right,
Yes. Yeah.
right.
It's actually kept me from seeing La La Land because it still just feels so
Oh, it's
odd.
so good.
I know.
It's so good.
I know.
It's so good. All right, Elise, share us your experience.
Yes, so my musical is Wicked, and Wicked came out when I was 13, which shows my youth, in 2003.
That's right.
Yeah. And so I think it was just such an amazing musical at the time for me as a 13-year-old because, for those of you who don't know the story, it explores themes of popularity and what the lengths that people will go to fit in. And so Elphaba, who we know as the Wicked Witch of the West from The Wizard of Oz, is born green, and she's a misfit. She has been longing to fit in. She also is born with this power of sorcery that she knows that if people could see her for who she really is, they would appreciate this gift. And so the story, it follows her journey realizing that what things she thinks will make her happy really are kind of a fraud. But so The Wizard and I, one of the songs that I love is she just sings this ballad kind of dreaming about the wizard seeing her for who she really is, and once he approves of her and is able to lift up her power and her gifts, then it won't matter anymore that she's green.
But I swear someday there'll be a celebration throughout Oz. That's all to do with me. Now stand there with the wizard, feeling things I've never felt. And though I never show it, I'd be so happy I could melt. And so it will be for the rest of my life, and I want nothing else to.
And what I love about this song is that it throws in this humorous foreshadowing about her life as the Wicked Witch. Like, I'd be so happy I could melt. And throughout the whole show, the character Fiyero, who eventually is to be the Scarecrow, they make these jokes about him living an unexamined life. He loves being brainless and carefree. So they're just great bits of foreshadowing throughout.
Now, I should mention here that Elphaba is played by Idina Menzel.
Yes.
Who won a Tony for her performance.
The original cast won a Tony. Yep.
Yeah, she's awesome. And she shows up in my Broadway experience here, and just I'll talk about it in a moment. So now this was, I did not see this musical. The book was great.
Yes.
Very dark.
Yeah, and so I went into the musical knowing all of the songs, and I think what really blew my mind is that I was in the dark about the plot twists, and after you see Wicked, it completely changes the way you see The Wizard of Oz. And in my house, that was a very beloved movie and musical. So the whole time I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh my gosh, like he's going to be the Scarecrow, he's going to be the Tin Man, and I think the ultimate mind-blowing moment of the whole show is Defying Gravity, when Elphaba is making her transition into the Wicked Witch of the West.
So if you care to find me, look to the western sky. As someone told me lately, everyone deserves a chance to fly. And if I'm flying solo, at least I'm flying free. To those who ground me, take a message back from me. Tell them how
Look to the western sky.
And so in this moment, she's put a flying spell on a broom to escape. It's gotten to the point where she's met the wizard, realized that he is a fraud, and what he wants to use her powers to help silence the animals in the land of Oz, who at this point, they talked, they lived among humans, they were teaching at the school that she goes to, where she met Glinda, who is Glinda the Good. And she says that she's not going to be a part of that, and takes the chance and flies to escape his palace. And just the moment they have the wind machines blowing on her dress, and what we just listened to, the build up, is when she actually flies, and they lift her up on the pulleys and everything they've got. But it's a technical feat too, and I think that was just an amazing thing about the show, is all the trap doors and whimsical things that were added into the show that I hadn't seen. I had seen Kiss Me Kate and Phantom of the Opera that were also very stunning to see in New York, but this had just changed my experience of what it's like to see a Broadway show.
How badly do you dream of being able to be in the pulleys and blown away and learning to fly?
I definitely imagine this in my car, as Kristin does when she is breaking out into song, just with the wind blowing in your hair. Yeah, definitely think about Defying Gravity. And I think as a 13-year-old, that became the anthem of all the theater misfits that I was friends with, and we would all pair up in our practice room singing the Glinda and Elphaba duet. So it was good times.
Nice.
All right, so let me talk about my mind-blowing experience, which goes back to the late 90s, and that would be Rent. And one thing, one thing that's very special about all of our experiences is just a musical. You're there. You're not far from the performers. You're taking it in live. It's not quite a concert. It's definitely not a movie. And it was really something to be there in 1997 when Rent first premiered. And so I saw it with the original cast, and it was such a hot thing, and the topics were so powerful. The AIDS epidemic, and it was just really an amazing experience to be there. And one of the things that blew me away was, as you mentioned, Kristin, like with Hedwig, this was a rock and roll story, and the music kicks off right away with that vibe.
How do you document real life when real life's getting more like fiction each day? Headlines, breadlines blow my mind, and now this deadline, eviction or pay. Rent!
I love how Rent gets dropped into the story every once in a while, every few songs. That's a neat theme. Have you all seen Rent?
Yes, I have.
Yeah. I actually just saw it for the first time a couple of weeks ago, which was pretty fabulous.
And yeah, what did you think of it?
Oh, I loved it. It was funny because I knew some of the songs, but not a lot. And, with the opening scenes, when they introduced the topic of AIDS, I found myself realizing, that was such a big deal. We thought about it all the time in the late 90s. And it's so interesting to think about how little we talk about it or think about it now. That really struck me.
Right. So I have a math question for you all.
All right.
How many minutes are in a year?
525,600
Yes.
minutes.
That would be right. That would be right.
525,600 minutes. 525
This musical has stuck with me for 20 years now, and the themes, it's definitely rooted in the late 90s, but the themes are timeless.
Yes.
So you could swap out the AIDS epidemic, which is still significant now, for other things like the immigration and just not feeling connected to the world and trying to find friendship, trying to find meaningful relationships. It's still very powerful.
Well, and the theme of gentrification is super current. So that was
For sure.
interesting. They did update it a little bit, a tiny bit. They were looking at a tech company moving in, and that's why they were being evicted.
Okay, not
but
the studio,
No,
not the movie
yeah,
studio.
it was- so that was interesting. But yeah.
And just the whole theme of retaining your dignity faced with tragedy. And one of my favorite scenes favorite songs is Will I? Elegantly simple lyrics. It's really just two sentences repeated over and over. A neat thing about this musical is that some of the songs that they cycle back and they become layered. So that they'll blend a song that they introduce early, and then they mix it later in the show in some really effective, powerful ways.
I really loved what they did with No Day But Today throughout the show.
Yeah, that is a great quote from this. No Day But Today. My single favorite line from the musical is,
The opposite of war isn't peace, it's creation.
I think I heard that and my mind blew up right there. I mean,
Yeah.
this is so cool. Jonathan Larson was the mastermind behind this, and he died before it ever got to Broadway. And he does such a genius, and it's just so tragic that we never got more from him.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I just think it's that really was kind of the first of the rock and roll musicals that made it really big in my mind.
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
And one of the things I think that's kind of neat about both Rent and Wicked is the fact that I think that musicals go through periods of popularity and then periods where people aren't paying attention. And I feel like Rent, when Rent came out, people started really paying attention to musicals again. And then same thing with Wicked. I feel like when Wicked was really in its heyday, everybody was talking about seeing Wicked. And I think both shows, I mean, I know Rent just recently started touring again, but Wicked, I think, has continuously toured practically.
I think it's still on Broadway. It's one of the longest running.
It may have it,
shows,
but it's still tours.
And
to your point, there's another show right now that's bringing it back.
Yes.
Hamilton.
Hamilton, yeah.
And
I've not seen Hamilton,
I haven't either.
so we'll have to go see it and come back and talk about how it blew our minds on another episode. Sound
It's
good?
happening.
All right. So that's all we have time for. Our audio engineer and editor is Sean Beck. He deserves a standing ovation. Thanks to my sidekick, Dr. Kristin Daley, and to our guest, Elise Howell. Be sure to check out all of the content, including articles, videos, quizzes, and surveys on our website. Shrinktank.com is the place for all of your psychology and pop culture needs. Until next time, I'm Craig Pohlman, and this is Blew My Mind.